As I was telling you the other day, the film is more of a love story, and more the love triangle becomes more prominent than the social issue. You know, the Dreezer's novel is all about social issue. Okay, Dreezer's is a naturalistic setting. Okay, the movie is more of a romantic tale. Okay, therefore, the way now I was just wondering if you could get, if you had the time to go through the rest of the book 2, because book 2 is heavily dominated for for the 50% of its volume by how he adjusts himself to this family, to his new found cousins and the rich cousins and the Griffith family, and he starts making his, creating his own space in the factory, and his little fling with Roberta. Okay, half of the book 2 is all about that. The second half is more about about his interaction with Sondra. Okay. Now, in the light of this scene, okay, tell me something about the relationship, the interest in relationship that Dreezer had. The scene that you just watched, it does the idea that this man, this young man is absolutely blown away by this setting, this kind of a setting, by these kinds of people and the beauty of Sondra or Angela in the movie. Do you think that comes across effectively? Okay, the way his body language, the way he starts becoming very self-conscious when she is around. Okay. So, all that. Now, in the movie it is just a poor boy meets rich girl. In the novel it is how the poor boy uses this rich girl to go up the social ladder. Okay. In the movie I do not think that idea is so well articulated, because after all it is a love story. Remember that. So, when when we talk about adaptations, these are the issues that should be looked into. So, it is an adaptation, but it is an adaptation of a different kind. Therefore, perhaps that may be the reason why the director chose to change the names of the characters. That look, I am just taking the brief outline from the novel, but I am not actually, I am giving it my own spin to it. I think that is the idea. I also pay attention to Elizabeth Taylor's movements, the fluid movements, the gown. Okay, her gowns were much talked about. They became a fashion symbols at that point in cinematic history, because the focus was on her loveliness. Okay, and his beauty also, his masculine beauty, her feminine grace. Okay, so it's a coming together of two major stars here. Okay, not about the social propaganda that Dreezer was interested in. Now, coming to the social part of it, let us go to chapter 37, book 2, chapter 37. Roberta is pregnant. Yes, Roberta is now pregnant. We have already seen the physical intimacy between Clyde and Roberta. Okay. Socially, now what he is trying to tell us, what the writer, what Dreezer is trying to tell us is that these were these occurrences were nothing uncommon in that society. Okay. These were a matter, you know, these things, these kinds of pregnancies happened with alarming regularity. Now, what was the reason? One reason was the extreme puritanical nature of American society at that period, which prohibited men and women freely mixing together. Okay. And the idea is, whenever a society gets too repressive, too controlling, especially about mingling of opposite sexes, there is always trouble. But here he is talking of, yeah, and then there is also that ridiculous rule in his uncle's factory, that men and women should not socialize. I mean, why not? This is a rule I think at many workplaces even today. Okay, in many cities, in many countries, that there should not be any kind of mixing. People should not interact socially outside their working places. Okay. Now, what is the appropriacy of that and how sensible that rule is, we would not know. Okay, but then the question is always why not? Okay, but then anyway. Now, coming to page chapter 37, I am on page 414, 414. Now, we were talking about naturalism and how naturalism is interested in looking at human beings as they are and not portraying them in an idealized way. Now, there is one school of thought that looks at man as an ideal creation, ideal as with a capital I. Okay. Naturalism looked at human, the human beast, and here we have a glimpse of that when Clyde even refuses to accompany Roberta for this very serious appointment, and she has an appointment with a doctor who sort of specializes, supposedly specializes in terminating pregnancies, unwanted pregnancies. Clyde has somehow got information about this particular doctor from a friend of his. What are we looking at? What kind of social condition are we looking at? She is sad, but she has no other choice. She has to come to terms with that.
There are a lot of consequences to breaking social
Taboos. Yeah. So, there are lots of social taboos now. Rather than getting into the morality and see, all religions, let us not get into the religious part of it, but all religions prohibit abortion. Do we agree to that? There is not a single religion that says, okay, go ahead, if you do not want this pregnancy, go and get the fetus aborted. Now think of these ideas at this point in American history or in any history. This is a very serious issue, a woman's right to abortion. Now in America, all this came into being only in the late 60s, the counterculture period. Then there was actually a law had to be enacted, right to abortion. Are you aware of that? Right to abortion, and this particular law came into existence, which is very surprising, as late as the 1960s. So, what was happening before that? Black marketing of abortions. Okay. So, doctors charging what exorbitantly for these kinds of abortions, and when this particular doctor feels that she has come all by herself, she has no other companion, she does not have enough money, okay, and it may be a risky proposition. What does he do? He turns her down. Okay, and where does that leave her? So, I am not going into the details of I am more interested in the ideological approach that Dreiser takes. Now, Dreiser has no moral compunctions here. He is looking at the whole thing in a very objective way. Okay. The doctor takes a moral position. Look at it, where do you get that? Yes.
I mean, she goes to meet the doctor by herself. There's this line where he says, besides, he personally was more or less irritated by these young scamps of boys and girls who were so free to exercise the normal functions of their nature.
Great, yes. Now, for me, I am on page 427. 415, yes, but let me go to page 421. It is a very lengthy chapter where they just discuss the moral issues and the ethics of abortion. Page 421, where he advises her, this may not be as serious as you think. I know you are probably very much frightened, but it is not unusual for women to miss a period. At any rate, without an examination, it would not be possible to be sure, etc., etc. And then on page 422, as I told you before, Miss Howard, if that is your name, I am seriously opposed to operations of this kind. just as I am to the folly that brings girls and young men to the point where they seem to think they are necessary. A physician may not interfere in a case of this kind unless he is willing to spend 10 years in prison, and I think that law is fair enough. Not that I do not realize how painful your present situation appears to you, but there are always those who are willing to help a girl in your state, providing she does not wish to do something which is morally and legally wrong. And to the very best advice I can give you now is that you do nothing at all now or at any time. Better go home and see your parents and confess. It will be much better, I assure you. Do not forget, there is a life there, a human, if it is really as you think, a human life which you are seeking to end, and that I cannot help you to do. Now, he takes a very religious and a very moral position. And what is Dreser's opinion of this? What is Dreser's opinion of this? Now, I am no longer interested in what is the doctor's opinion. We have already seen he is a morally righteous person. What does Dreser think of such people? The entire episode, now this is a very important chapter in the book, the entire episode is treated with extreme detachment and objectivity. Nowhere does Dreser come forward and start moralizing or sermonizing or taking sides with Roberta or going against the doctor, whatever. He just presents you the way things are.
And doesn't Lisa find this sort of moral righteousness very farcical?
Exactly. Okay,
And
because
this-
it's so pro men and so against women.
And this point in the story is actually really important.
A turning point.
Yeah, it could have prevented the
Ultimate tragedy,
of this
yes.
entire story.
Yeah. So please note these things, that this turning down of this girl's request proves to be the turning point. So who is her real killer? So you know, we have been talking about the social pyramid that people like Gramsci and Althusser talk about. Okay, so at the top you have all these moral custodians of society. You have parents. So young people have made a mistake, or so called mistake, a folly, as the doctor rightly or wrongly points out. But then is it only her fault? Okay. And also the point that society was such, and we had such puritanical standards of moral behavior, that there was nothing like called sex education. Okay. And that is what Dreser finds extremely disturbing, that when men and women are thrown together so often and so much and to this degree, then why aren't they educated about having safe sex? So, and this is a revolutionary point to make at that period in history. Okay.
But I'm confused about one thing. Didn't Clyde hear from someone that this doctor
Exactly.
performs these?
Yeah.
So why does he refuse for them?
Isn't he refusing her only after realizing that she doesn't have the money to pay?
She doesn't have a husband.
Yeah.
She doesn't have a male companion. That's what I told you. She doesn't have, and the way she talks, it slowly gives away the fact that she is not married. So she is not married. Her boyfriend or husband, whoever is supposed to be around her, he is not there. Later on in the same novel, when in book 3, when the murder has been committed, or whether it's a murder in the first place or not, that is also very ambiguous. You have, if you haven't read the novel so far, please go through it. By the end of the second book, book 2, you will feel whether he actually committed the murder or was it an accident. And if he actually committed the murder, because that is what he had in mind, that if she dies, this pregnant girlfriend of mine dies, then I am free to marry Sondra. Okay, but and then in book 3, now any normal, or not a no, normal is not the right word, any regular conventional novel would have ended with Roberta's death and a quick resolution for the other characters, whether he ends up with her or whether he ends up getting electrocuted. it does not happen. Book 3 is all there. I mean, any regular novel would have ended ideally at that point, that Roberta is drowned and Clyde gets caught and gets punished. It is not that simple here. Okay, and that is because book 3 is what takes this novel to another level. Therefore, it became a document of social justice or social debate in American history. That is the relevance, because it is book 3 that brings into all these brings about all these discussions and debates about ethical, moral and legal aspects of sex and the nature of murder that was the nature of murder or the murder that did not happen, okay, and the nature of capital punishment, okay, whether it should be there or not, because he maintains that he did not kill her, it was an accident. Okay. So, now book 3 is all about, now coming back to the same thing, that at the top of the pyramid, the hierarchy of social institutions, who are the people at the top? Do you think this doctor is a part of that? Yeah, part of that pyramid at the top. In what capacity? As an educated, as an expert, as some kind of a moral torch bearers. Okay. So, doctor, a respectable position. So, that these are the bourgeoisie, she is the working class. It is that kind of here. Now, there is a distance between, he refuses to see her point of view. At the end of the chapter, she is literally in tears and begging, please do this, otherwise I will not be able to show my face around. Okay. And he increasingly hardens his stand. Note that. So, these are the things that you should pay attention to, that how. So, it is not perhaps the writing style is a bit meandering if you are reading Dreiser, but it is what he is trying to say is more important. Okay. So, how people, the so called moral torch bearers and beacons of hope and all these things, how increasingly they take this very hardline kind of a position, which makes it very difficult for women to escape from the clutches of people, because see, what is her fault in it? And why is that fellow allowed to let go so scot free, absolutely blameless? Nobody even talks about it. It is your fault, you got yourself into. Now go up to your parents and confess. So, you have the idea, the parental authority at the top, you have your society, you have the educated people, and in book 3 the entire social system is in place, the entire machinery is in place. And what is that machinery? The law, the judiciary, okay, the law, the legal system, the rich versus poor. So, law is different for the rich and for the poor. So, Clyde gets electrocuted by the end of the story because he is poor, that is also there. So, it is not just like open and shut case, and it is not a morally very black space that Clyde occupies, he is in a very grey area. Therefore, if you have read the novel and if you have paid attention to the language, there is an emphasis on his grey suit. Constantly we are told at the time of the murder, he was wearing a grey suit. When he attends his trial, he is wearing a grey suit. And I was just wondering why is Dreiser talking so much about suit, and then the color comes into the picture. It is a grey suit that is a morally very ambivalent character. Okay, he is what the society turned him into. Roberta behaves in a way. Now again, Roberta absolutely right now she is a sympathetic character, but later on in the same book, in book 2, she starts suffocating Clyde. Okay, she keeps on writing him these whining and whinging kinds of letters, that if you do not marry me, I will come and I will destroy you. If you do not marry me, I will come and expose you. I will tell it to your uncle, I will tell it to the people you work with. Okay. This sort of alienates us from her. Now, we are no longer looking at her as this suffering sympathetic figure. Okay, she turns into this annoying kind of a creature, okay, who is just not willing to see his point of view. Now, what is he trying to do here? He is just trying to, he may be a cad, okay, and Dreiser has no sympathy for his hero, absolutely. So, therefore, my repeated references to the film, the filmmaker has all his sympathies for the leading characters, Elizabeth Taylor and Montgomery Clift. He is more interested in their beauty. Okay, so therefore, it completely shifts the ideological position that Dreiser takes. But Dreiser here is very clear that man, the hero is a scam. Okay, a young Kellogg or whatever he calls him. But the woman is not entirely blameless. Again, he takes another approach to Roberta's character also. Now, what Clyde in his half-baked, and we are told this very often, very frequently, that he is a semi-educated person. From this kind of a person, now suddenly an opportunity is presented to him in the form of the beautiful Sondra. And what does she tell him? By this time, when Roberta is pregnant, 3 months, 4 months into her pregnancy, what is his equation with Sondra? Not just closer, not just closer. He is getting invited to all her country parties, and she is away picnicking in the country house along with a group of other very highly placed friends. And Clyde is actually invited to join Sondra and her friends in the countryside.
He's starting to realize that maybe it's possible for him to now be part of this circle.
Yes.
Not just he starts realizing, but what happens is that this increasing closeness between Sondra and Clyde, Sondra's mother starts getting concerned about this relationship, and she sort of warns her daughter that he is not really one of the Griffiths, although he is related by blood, he has no money, he is not one of us, stay away from him. That is also there. Now, what is her reaction to this? She goes and tells, and this is important, this is extremely important. While Roberta is pregnant, at the same time Sondra, oblivious to Roberta's presence in Clyde's life, she approaches Clyde and says that, look, right now I am only 17 years and a few months. After a couple of months I will be 18, I will come of age. Okay. If my mother does not allow us, we will elope. It does not really matter to me. I do not want my parents' consent or blessings. And she has a brother, I think, in the novel there is a brother, Stuart, I think, Stuart, yeah. So she says that Stuart likes you, he will help us. All my friends, or within this friend circle you are accepted, they will also help us. Now, the only thing that is left to us is that just wait for me to come of age. I will be legally 18 and then we will escape, we will elope, we will get married, we will come back to my family. What will they do? And what can they do? They are not going to throw me out or disinherit me, they love me too much for that. Okay. Now, now this semi-educated, almost small town boy, rustic boy who has had only bad experiences throughout his life, okay, suddenly an opportunity like this appears. So, it is not just like he is imagining things, an opportunity of a lifetime is actually being presented to him on a platter. You see that? Do you think Sondra is also in a way complicit in whatever happens? Her complicity in his situation? But doesn't she see the enormous social chasm and gap between them?
And she's only doing it to annoy him.
She is doing this to, for her it's a game.
Yeah. I mean, she's just using him the
Initially,
way
it was
Initially, yeah, but she actually believes that she is in love. So, the notion of love, the idealized. So, this is also something that Dreiser is interested in, that most of us fall not in love with people, but with the notion of this idealized kind of love. I can give up everything for you, but can you? See, she is tested right after making this suggestion. When Roberta's murder, the news comes out, what is the first thing that she does? She has written all these love letters to, now again there is a juxtaposition of these two things happening. On one hand, you have Roberta writing heart-rending letters to Clyde that that grow increasingly threatening in tenor. After a while, first she pleads and then she says, I am so alone. She is sent off to her parents' house. She has no other way. So, Clyde says, for a couple of months, because now your pregnancy may start showing, why don't you go home and start staying with your parents on their farm. Okay. And she does that because she feels that she needs some rest. In the factory condition, working conditions, she cannot rest. So, she leaves and she stays with her family for a month or so. And she is happy, but from there sometimes she writes 3 letters a day or 4 letters a day and keeps on posting. So, Clyde is clever enough never to write to her, because in his mind he thinks, if I do not write to her, there is no way that anyone can ever connect me to her. But he does not realize that the law does not think that way. The law is not that so simple or so foolish, because the moment she gets killed, what does the police, what do the detectives do? First thing, they go to her house. Okay? They can track her, that's very easily, that can be easily done. They go track her down, they track her family down, they go to the farm, and the mother says yes, she used to send letters every day. They go to the post office, and there the postmaster has all the details of the addresses that she was sending the letters to, and there was only one address, Clyde Griffith in Lycurgus. Lycurgus, by the way, is a fictional part. Actually, it is meant to be New York. So, we are given references to New York throughout, okay, but Lycurgus is a part of New York, which really historically, geographically does not exist. But we are just, because maybe Clyde Dreiser may not have wanted to present the novel like a documentary.
Like this, there are quite a few Greek references throughout the.
So, are you trying to read a Greek tragedy kind of a reference here?
There are references to other Grecian characters.
Yes.
Like
give me some examples. While you are at it, chapter 38 please. The first effect of the doctor's decision was to shock and terrify them both, Roberta and Clyde, beyond measure, for apparently now here was illegitimacy and disgrace for Roberta, exposure and destruction for Clyde. Okay. So, both of them. Okay. So, it is not like now they are no longer functioning as one unit, it is disgrace for her and it is social destruction for him. Yeah. Therefore, this child has to be, or this pregnancy has to be aborted. Now, coming back to the letter writing, now while she is sending those letters to Clyde Griffith, at the same time you have Sondra's letters to Clyde, where she professes undying love, and did you notice she uses that baby talk? My dear Clyde, I am writing to tell you that I am coming back to Lycurgus. I simply can't stay here any longer. Mama worries and wonders why I cry so much, and I am just about sick. I know I promised to stay until the 25th or 26th, but then you said you would write me, but you never have. Only an occasional telephone message when I am almost crazy. I woke up this morning and couldn't help crying right away, and this afternoon my headache is dreadful. Okay, and the last few lines. You have said you would come, and sometimes I just know you will, but at other times I get to thinking about other things and I am just as certain you won't. So, especially when you do not write or telephone. I wish you could write and say that you will come just so I I can stand to stay here just as soon as you get this. I wish you would write me and tell me the exact day you can come, not later than the first, really, because I know I cannot stand to stay here any longer then. This letter, coupled as it was with the threat to come to Lycurgus, was sufficient to induce in Clyde a state not unlike Roberta's, to think that he had no additional, let alone plausible excuse to offer Roberta, whereby she could be induced to delay her final and imperative demand. He racked his brains, he must not write her any long and self-incriminating letters. Now there is another, now all these, how would a person like Clyde, who is not a criminal, okay, basically he is not crime, but then la bête humaine inside, and he comes across a news item in the papers that there is a reported incident where a man in his 30s and a woman in her early 20s, they went for a boat ride, the boat capsized, the body of the young woman has been found and the man's body has never been found. Now he starts thinking about it, and then only conclusion he can draw from this episode is that perhaps the man was in a similar situation, perhaps a married man because of his age, a younger girl, he got her in trouble and the best way to get rid of her was to drown her. The man escaped and he escaped, and he never got caught. So, do not you think that I can also get away with blue murder like that? At the same time, you also have example of his sister Esther. Once upon a time, she got into a similar trouble. Now she is happily married to a nice enough guy. Why can't Roberta end up like that? Why can't she go somewhere, get birth to this baby? Okay, I will pay for it, but I can pay for it only if she allows me to marry Roberta. Why is she creating so much, sorry Sandra, why is she creating so much of trouble out of nothingness? So, this is the state of mind, this is the frame of mind, a society which is so much prejudiced against women. Okay. And also these are questions, these basic human rights, that why can't abortion be legalized? Okay. If it were only legalized, all this major tragedy would not have occurred. Any comments? I wanted to read out Sandra's letters also, because it is so interesting against the backdrop of this other girl's letters. How did I lose that? Anyone can help me here? Yeah, can you tell me that part? 446. Let's go to page 446, although she writes also in this vein. Yes, it's end of chapter 40 and 446. So, the last. So, you know when she has all, Clyde is going through all these problems, there is Sandra who sat next to him and who previously had been whispering at intervals of her plans for the summer. Now, instead of resuming the patter, whispered, "What come over the sweet ping?" Now, whatever that means. When Clyde appeared to be the least reduced in mind, she most affected this patter with him, since it had an almost electric, if sweetly tormenting effect on him. His baby talking girl, he sometimes called her. Facey all dark now. Little while ago, Facey all smiles. Come make Facey all nice again. Smile at Sandra. Squeeze Sandra's arm like a good boy, Clyde. Now, what kind of a talk is this? Some faces are very smiley now. Now, Ashwin, if you had a girlfriend like this, how would you respond? No idea? Well, you know, it is all, to me it looked quite silly. Yes, it is extremely silly, that, but perhaps Sandra is too young and too inexperienced. That's the only explanation, because she often resorts to this kind of, this is not a stray incident. She even sends letters in this vein. There are several, maybe when they catch those letters, the detectives come across those two women and they automatically sympathize with Roberta's, because when they see all these letters written in this style, they can understand the difference between the two women. Okay, so the binaries are very well established. One is always so serious, so pathetic, all the time she is clinging on, and this one, she is so happy, almost like an airhead, as we call such girls. Dumb blonde perhaps, but empty headed girl. Yeah, and coming, this is particularly important because when she starts making all these, makes Clyde dream about this kind of a golden future together, and coming from a person like this. Yeah. So I think Dreezer is trying to tell us that Clyde had no sense, and where he was getting himself into. He actually took this girl very seriously, her words very seriously, because what happens, the first thing when the news of Clyde murdering Roberta comes out, the first, what is the first thing, I am coming back to my previous question, what is the first thing that Sandra does? She goes running to her dad and says, I have written letters to this guy, what do I do about it? And she weeps and weeps and weeps, and then the father, who is very described in great detail as an imposing man and a well connected man and this and that, and he says, okay, the first thing you should do is that get out of this city and this country, for there is a country house, farmhouse, or a mansion on some kind of an island, okay, and we have a house there, so all of you should disappear and go there and be absolutely non-committal to the press and to the detectives, etc. And idea is your name shouldn't come. This is throughout the investigation, throughout, I mean, it's such a big case, it's such a serious issue. Her name is never divulged either to the papers, and it doesn't come out in the legal case also, in the legal debate also, in the court also. That is what Dreezer is trying to tell us, that how could one girl go absolutely unscathed, okay, although she is also responsible for his condition. Okay. She took love as a game. Okay. He took the entire thing extremely seriously because of the way he was. Okay. This is a great psychological reading into a certain kind of a mind. I would like to finish the novel tomorrow. Okay. So, what we will do, I want you to finish book 2, absolutely, and come having read, we will just quickly talk about second book and finish with the third book. All right.